fragile ceasefire between the United States and Iran appears to be hanging by a thread. US President Donald Trump says the truce is now on life support. Oil prices are rising again. Washington is weighing tougher military options, and both sides are continuing to trade threats as hopes for a diplomatic breakthrough begin to fade. Here's a full roundup of the latest developments. US President Donald Trump has described the ceasefire with Iran as unbelievably weak and on life support, after dismissing Tehran's latest response to a US peace proposal as stupid. But despite the increasingly hostile rhetoric, Trump says a diplomatic solution is still very possible.
Unbelievably weak, I would say. I would call it the weakest right now. After reading that piece of garbage they sent us, I didn't even finish reading it. They said, I'm not going to waste my time reading it. I would say it's one of the weakest right now. It's on life support. They understand. These are all medical people. Dr. Oz, life support is not a good thing. Do you agree?
Diagnostic.
I would say the ceasefire is on massive life support, where the doctor walks in and says, sir, your loved one has approximately a 1% chance of living. Yeah.
Mr. President.
According to reports in US media, Trump is becoming increasingly frustrated with Iran's handling of the negotiations, with some advisors now weighing the possibility of a return to large-scale military action more seriously than in previous weeks. The reports say Trump's frustration is being driven by two major issues. The first is Iran's ongoing blockade and pressure campaign around the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important oil shipping routes. The second is what Trump reportedly sees as divisions within Iran's leadership, which he believes are making it harder for Tehran to agree to the kind of concessions Washington wants in exchange for ending the conflict. Iran, however, says the United States is the one making unreasonable demands. Foreign Ministry spokesman Esmail Baghaei accused Washington of pushing conditions that Tehran cannot accept, while Iran's parliamentary speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf warned that Iran is prepared to respond to any aggression. Ghalibaf also said the US should accept Iran's proposal instead of prolonging negotiations, warning that the longer Washington drags its feet, the more American taxpayers will pay for the conflict. The increasingly tense rhetoric is also triggering political fallout inside the United States. Senior Democrat Senator Chuck Schumer has accused Trump of dragging the US into what he called an illegal, costly war without any goals or endgame. Schumer says Democrats will force another vote this week on a war powers resolution aimed at withdrawing US troops from hostilities involving Iran. The resolution is designed to limit a president's ability to continue military action without congressional approval after 60 days of conflict. Democrats have attempted several similar votes before, but Republicans have largely voted them down. Meanwhile, global markets are continuing to react nervously to the uncertainty surrounding the conflict. Oil prices climbed again in early Asian trading after hopes for a diplomatic breakthrough appeared to weaken. Brent crude rose above $104 a barrel, while US crude approached $99 a barrel. The gains followed a sharp jump on Monday, when both oil benchmarks surged nearly 3% as traders weighed the risk of disruptions to energy exports from the Gulf. In response to growing market concerns, the Trump administration is now releasing more oil from America's Strategic Petroleum Reserve. According to Reuters, Washington will loan more than 53 million barrels of crude oil to major energy companies under an international effort to stabilize global energy markets. The Department of Energy says the move is part of a broader plan to release up to 172 million barrels from U.S. reserves to offset supply pressures linked to the war. Major firms including ExxonMobil, Trafigura, and Marathon Petroleum are expected to benefit from the program. At the same time, pressure on Iran is also increasing internationally. Australia has announced new sanctions on 7 Iranian individuals and 4 entities, accusing Tehran of human rights abuses and regional destabilization. Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong said the sanctions target senior officials allegedly linked to violence against protesters, including women and children, as well as parts of what Canberra calls Iran's shadow banking system. Australia says those networks help fund armed groups, missile programs, and other destabilizing activities in the region. The latest sanctions follow similar measures announced by both the United States and the United Kingdom earlier this week. Washington says the sanctions are aimed at cutting off funding for Iran's weapons programs, proxy groups, and nuclear ambitions. For now, the gap between Washington and Tehran still appears wide. Diplomacy remains technically alive, but with military threats intensifying, oil markets on edge, and political pressure building on both sides, the ceasefire is looking increasingly fragile.